So we are going to start right out of the gate um, with some context for the Gospels and for Jesus's life. This is a pretty solid academic move. Anytime people are historians of a time and place in which we're not living, doing research about what things look like, sound like, feel like around the areas that are where the historical figures come, um, is what we research. And so it's interesting now that, especially in the 21st century, as there's this perception that news is happening in real time and history is happening in real time. But by nature of how history works, history happens looking backward, not at the present. Like the events that we go through will be assigned significance or not, or what have you, ultimately by the people that follow us. Anyway, so today we're going to contextualize the life of Jesus. This whole unit is meant to set the stage into which Jesus is born. So we'll also end today with an activity making a mental map that I'm pretty excited about in Miro, which is a free online software for mental maps. And we'll do it as a whole class, so it should be pretty fun. Anyway, so today, big ideas. Contextualizing Jesus is important for understanding who he was, what he did, and what significance it might have had in the first century. So today we're kind of trying to back up a bit and say, okay, many people today in the world have heard about Jesus and his significance and the Christian tradition. But what happened before that? What happened before the cat was out of the bag and everybody kind of knew who Jesus was? You have to remember the Gospels were written after Jesus had died and, according to Christian tradition, had been resurrected. When Jesus's life was actually happening, that wasn't people didn't know that. So we have to remember when we read about Jesus, we're reading things that were retrojected onto his life. But he had to go through his life to get there. And he went through his life as a Nazarene peasant. So what does it mean to be a Judean Jewish peasant in a Roman occupied territory? It's not just hey, there was a guy who got some followers, told a bunch of stories, and then he got crucified, and then he was resurrected. JK, crucifixion. There was more to it than that, and there's richness and depth that I think people often miss out on when we don't dig deeply into the context. So the context involves a cast of characters, geographic scenes, religious scenes, and political scenes. All of these things come together to form whole people. So those of you who identify with a religious or ethical tradition, that's not only who you are. Those of you who identify strongly with a political ideology, that's not the whole of who you are. You're also embedded in lots of different relationships. Being a Valpo student doesn't define the whole of who you are. So we're going to try to set that stage to have a bigger and messier picture of the world of the Gospels. But I think the messier picture is a little more honest than a neat and tidy one that we could tie up with a bow. Also, it would be a really short class if I was hey, just read one of the Gospels and then we're done. And no, it's not an option. I'm not going to do that for you, so don't even ask. I mean, you can ask. I'll say no. All right, so our roadmap for today, we'll talk about the political context of Judea in the first century, which means we'll back up to the time of the Assyrian exile in 722 BCE, for those of you who are remembering your Theo 200 classes right now. And we'll go up through the first century in terms of some of the political ideology. We'll also I'll give you the shortest lecture I have ever given on the backgrounds of the Gospels, because we'll get there when we do the individual gospels themselves. But mostly, we're just gonna dive into the middle of the pool, and it's gonna be fun. Yeah, it's really gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun semester. Okay, and then we're gonna do the mental map activity that I'm super duper excited about. So, can't wait for the class. I hope you all are having a good first week back and are figuring out what muscles you need to flex to remember how to be students again. See you Wednesday.